Check, hello. Check 1, 2, 3, check.
Cut all the trees.
Code, and helping other folks in the community to have a local developer community.
Oh.
Issues in the flood repository. And a lot of people contribute with a workaround or a solution they have found on a Stack Overflow, and those are really helpful. Sometimes the issue is very critical to, like, very difficult to fix. It will require some breaking change or
Say hello.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, so sir, you both of you are visible to the audience now. We have, if you can see the screen, so and the students are also visible through Elizabeth's beat. So you can speak to the students if you wish to.
So welcome everybody. Can everyone hear me? Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear. Yes, we are able to hear you.
So are we going to like screen the film and then have a talk after that? Or?
Yes, so there's a slight delay for the guests to arrive. So once they are here, we just have a small welcome and a prayer, and then we start with the screening of the.
We can just wait for them to arrive and then start after the screening.
All right, okay.
That's okay.
വീഡിയോ ആഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണ് അത് മറ്റേ മീഡിയ സോഴ്സിൻ്റെ അകത്ത് കയറിയിട്ട് മീഡിയ സോഴ്സിൽ ഓക്കെ അത് നമ്മൾ തുറന്നു വെക്കേണ്ടവരുണ്ട് ഇവിടെയൊക്കെ പാത്ത് നോക്കിയിട്ടേ ചിലപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ആയിരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ ബ്രൗസറിൽ തന്നെ എടുക്കണം എവിടെ കിടക്കാൻ നമ്മൾ പാത്ത് നോക്കിയിട്ട്
Love what you do and do what you love, and learn the art of constantly enjoying every minute of your life, said B.V Doshi. Balakrishna Vithaldas Doshi, the Indian architect whose myriad accolades include the 2018 Pritzker Architecture Prize and 2022 Viva Royal Gold Medal, departed on January 24, 2023, at the age of 95 in Ahmedabad. Doshi has been recognized as a visionary with a vast spectrum of projects that ranges from dwellings, affordable housing, educational institutions, to cities and regional plans. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. Myself, Christina Clara Anthony, and Anika Maria Ajit are your hosts for the day. We are congregated here today to remember the journey and triumphs of our maestro, architect B.V Doshi. As an adjunct to this, SCMS School of Architecture created this momentous event, Sādhanā, meaning disciplined and dedicated practice or learning, being truly apt to the Maestro himself. We had the film screening of the movie Doshi by Intelligent Films, as well as a presentation prepared by the SCMS students of SSA on a few of his eminent works on the dates before. Now, we have gathered here on the third day of Sādhanā to offer our personal tribute to the life and work of the renowned modernist, educator, institution builder, urbanist, and artist. I now welcome Aslisha of S3 for the prayer song. Shrutinamagami sudhidaganatnya mahino na janandi parantavamba studhikartumichhami detvam bhavani kshamasvedamatra pramugdha kilaham Gurustvam Shivastvam Shashaktistvameva Tvamevasi Madapida Tvameva Tvamevasi Vidya Tvamevasi Bandhur Gadir Me Madir Devi Sarvam Tvameva Sharanye Varanye Sukarunyamurti Hiranyodhara Dhairaganye Supunye भवारण्यभीतीक्षणां पाहि भद्रे नमस्ते 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 भवानी नमस्ते 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 भवानी नमस्ते 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 भवानी.
We are fortunate enough to have such eminent personalities under one roof. Today we have with us architect Jose Binoy. I request Janet to hand over the bouquet. Architect Praveen Ram, I request Sādhanā to hand over the bouquet. Architect Ar.Bijoy, I request Hannah to hand over the bouquet. And joining us online are Architect B.V Ramachandran and Mr. Premjit Ramachandran. We welcome Anil sir and I welcome John sir. Kindly hand over the bouquet. With due respect, I cordially welcome Professor Architect Anil Ravindranathan to deliver the welcome address.
Dear guests, fellow architects, students, and colleagues, good afternoon to one and all present here. It is an honor and pleasure for me to be here to deliver the welcome address at this event organized as a tribute to the revered architect and inspiring human being, Sri B.V Doshi. As we all know, Doshi attained humble abode on the 24th of January this year. However, his influence on the growth of architecture as a practice, and more so in its education, is paramount. Whether it was IIM Bangalore or the Shreya School, climate and context influenced his design. As a tribute, it is only fit that we have guests who have had close interactions with Sri Doshi to try and understand the human being and the architect that he was. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome on the online platform Architect B.V Ramachandran and filmmaker Mr. Premjit Ramachandran, they both had made 2 documentaries on Doshi in the year 2008 and 2019, capturing his thoughts on life and architecture. I also welcome Architect Jose Binoy, Architect Ar.Bijoy, and Architect Praveen Ram, who have interacted with Doshi at various stages of their profession, influencing their own practice and process. Their personal perspectives of Doshi will be instrumental in trying to understand the persona that he was. I also welcome the members of the IAA this evening to this event as well. I also welcome Dr. Baiju Radhakrishnan, Group Director of the SCMS Group of Institutions. Let me welcome my dear students and colleagues to know Doshi and his outlook on architecture and life. I'm sure you will find the life of Sri Doshi inspiring and thought-provoking, and I hope some thoughts that he had, you'll take forward into your own practice in life. Thank you.
Thank you for officially welcoming the gathering and marking the beginning to the event, sir. A single spark of light can illuminate the darkness of the whole world. I now welcome Architect Ar.Bijoy, Architect Jose Binoy, Architect Praveen Ram, Dr. Baiju Radhakrishnan, our Principal Anil Sir, the Mayor of the Dean of the Administration, Dr. Merrill George, and Architect John Kurula to light the lamp. Now, I would like to welcome Architect Vishnu K. Suresh, our faculty in SSA, to offer tribute to Architect B.V. Doshi.
Good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure and a solemn pride to be standing before you in this august presence to talk about one of the most prolific architects India has seen in the last 20th century, architect Padma Vibhushan Shri B.V. Doshi. Born in Pune in 26 August 1927 into a Gujarati family and through decades of work across the country, Doshi transformed the way India viewed architecture, especially in the lenses of institutional, residential, and many other typologies in design. His leadership also saw the emergence of architectural pedagogy in various facets, which drew attention to the institution of Center of Environmental Planning and Technology in Ahmedabad as well. Working under revolutionary minds of the early 20th century architects Le Corbusier and Louis Kahn, Doshi transformed himself into a pioneer of Indian modernist architecture, where he experimented constantly with brutalism and an observable honesty in materials and design. For a person who became an architect by chance after he graduated from the prestigious Sir J.J. School of Art, he had an incredibly illustrious career that was almost always grounded in language, in design, and in discourse. His humanistic, honest, and almost exploratory nature of work awarded him many recognitions from his home and abroad, including the Pritzker in 2018 and the Padma Bhushan in 2020. Through his designs, it can be confidently said that he was a master wielder of form and light. Through the 70 years of exploration of his life in design, the work of Balakrishna Doshi has almost always mirrored through the evolution of 20th century Indian architecture. Of course, his first professional engagement with French architect Le Corbusier during the conception of Chandigarh left a profound impression, which is extremely notable in the rest of his designs, but with an honesty that is very rooted and indic in nature. He often sought to interpret and reinterpret Corbusier's almost machine-like expression of cities into one filled with life through respect of site, climate, and technology that was available. His work through his time, right from the Ahmedabad School of Architecture, Institute of Indology, IIM Bangalore, and his own Vastu Shilpa Foundation, all reflects his ideals as a creative professional, as an architect, and as a human being, all grounded, honest, reflective, and almost introspective that allowed the user to inhabit its life. Before entering IIM Bangalore, when I was in the second year, I had seen a YouTube video about Doshi Saab talking about the design of the institute, which gave me personally an understanding of how a designer should view his design. He often reflected in his design that you should yearn for timelessness, and like life cycles of the universe, each structure, each building, each element, and each piece of human intervention should have its course in time and be allowed to evolve. Like a gardener planting his seeds for the future, many of his designs were forward-thinking, with life inhabiting those spaces many years after the commission and completion. Doshi Saab also mused about working with professionals rather than indicating their work under him, which in itself is an indication of how his designs were. I was merely a student of 19 years old when I first saw B.V Doshi Saab back in Pune during a forum talk. Back then, sitting in the home city of Pune, me and my friends had gotten the lucky 15 minutes break to talk with him. While sitting in the porch of the auditorium where we are always sitting, his words would always be something etched in stone in my mind. He said, architecture shouldn't be artifactual or become artifacts. It should be evolving, timeless, and it can be only done so if you allow the user and the people to inhabit through it. I guess he was one of those architects and human beings who preached what he practiced. Every single design was a reflection of those words. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Premjit Ramachandran is a musician, filmmaker, and graphic designer living in Tiruvannamalai, India. For more than 15 years, he has worked on graphic design, fine art, and branding projects for businesses like Ogilvy One in Mumbai and Dubai, Lander Associates in Dubai, and Turquoise Branding in London. He chose to investigate filmmaking after being disenchanted with the corporate world of commercial graphic design and produced his debut movie, Look Here Kuniganda, in the Dubai deserts in 2006. In 2007, after returning from London, he made the decision to learn more about the filmmaking process. They started working on a full-length video portrait of Balakrishna Doshi together with his brother B.V Ramachandran. He spent 4 months in Wayanad in 2009, filming, editing, directing 9 short films about tribal culture, ritual dances performed in temples, and other lesser-known folklore of the Malayali hinterland. He produced 2 documentaries in 2012, Colors of Hope, a short film about a free school for the underprivileged kids in Nagua, Varanasi, and Swaram, a musical instrument workshop and venue for sound education and therapy in Auroville. Bijoy and Premjit met Doshi once more in 2019, 10 years after the Doshi project, and had the opportunity to capture more magic, myth, and metaphor from the 95-year-old Pritzker laureate philosopher, poet, architect. Bijoy Ramachandran is an architect and urban designer based in Bangalore. He is currently a partner at 100 Hands, a widely recognized design studio. Architect Bijoy has a bachelor's degree in architecture from BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore, a master's degree in architecture and urbanism from the MIT, Cambridge, USA. He has been a panelist at the annual All India Undergraduate Thesis Review, the Kullavarki Design Forum at SET, Ahmedabad, and is currently serving as the design chair for the postgraduate program in Habitat Studies at the BMS College of Architecture, Bangalore. Apart from architecture, he has also made 3 films, Architecture and the City, A Bangalore Perspective, a documentary feature on professional practice in the city in 2005, and 2 feature documentaries on the celebrated Indian architect, Mr. B.V Doshi. Now, we will have 2 chapters, Architecture as Atmosphere and Architecture as Organism, from the movie Doshi, the second chapter being screened.
Good afternoon, Bijoy and Premjit. This is Anil here, the principal. I'm sorry, it's quite peculiar that we, being in a hybrid mode, we find it difficult to talk to you, right, or see you in person. So I welcome you both, and thank you so much for being part of this. And I'm sure there are other eager 3 people here who would like to say hi.
Hi, Bijoy, Pranjit. Hi. You can't.
Hi, Bijoy, how are you? Where are you exactly? Hello, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you.
Where are you? You look like you're in some interesting place.
Yeah, on the side. Yeah. Not my side. This isn't my looking. Sitting in a very garden.
Nice.
Lovely place.
Nice. Nice to see both of you. Look forward to hearing from you guys. It is a bit strange seeing you guys on screen rather than in person.
Yeah, sorry we couldn't be there.
But nice to have you nonetheless.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Hi, Bijoy, Pranjit.
Hi.
Yeah. Looking forward to hear from you. Yeah.
So Bijoy, we'll start with the movie and then we'll go forward with your talks, right? Okay. Thank you.
That spirit of becoming one. Wind, sun, shadow, they are all separate. You go on and have done my practice for so many years. Now the time comes, when you have to surrender. And in that surrender, there are a lot of lessons that you have learned all along your life. You see that they are all separate for your own thought, but eventually they all become one. And I think that's what architecture, planning, or life is. That's all it is. Finally, so, and to me that is what is most exciting. Because being that one, there are all the lessons. And those lessons tell you that all the spaces, all the structures, all the people that you want to see, you visit a temple, you visit buildings, you visit palaces. But finally when you want to ask yourself, where is that architect? It is in that spirit of becoming one. Wind, sun, shadow, light, courtyard, structure, form, everything. So everything eventually has to be only one. Your circuit is several centuries have happened. But the building has not changed. But we feel almost new every time we come. Because it has a dialogue with our inner God. Are we really talking about a dialogue between that space and our child and our livelihood and our dreams? That's why the architecture doesn't become alive. Buildings become only alive when there is a hidden aspiration, that longing, and that longing thing which we are searching. And look at the amount of diversity that is there in one panel. I mean, if you look at it, there are how many panels, but look, each panel, there are 4 maybe, or 4, 5, then every time you see something else. So there is a standard and there is a variation. There is a multiplication and there is an exception. Pause. Where are the pauses in our buildings? Do we pause at all? Do we appear and reappear? So, Sarkhe Jiroza to me is a great lesson. 600 years, they knew how to collect water, how to create a tank, how to create places for public and private, reverences and social structure, gathering and moving. And I think that is why this Rosa to me is always been very important. I have been seeing it for the last 60 years. I remember once I came here and it was sunlight and it was the beginning of monsoon, and suddenly there was a water here. The water was there always full. So you could imagine the shadow, the reflections and the light and the sun shining and the movement of water. And suddenly the clouds came and then they burst and the sky became blue. Sitting there alone and watching this scale. It's like another world. The statue became dynamic. The story became real. And you are actually an illusion. Strange. Are we really an illusion or are we permanent? Actually, what we think is ourselves, we are absolutely temporary. We don't even think about, nowadays we don't think about death. No? You go and send the fellow to the hospital inside and he goes to ICU and then you say, oh, no, he's no more there. Finished. Okay, it's all gone. Can I go back to my work? I have a commitment. That's my life. There is no pain. There is no loss. There is no longing. And after 2 hours, we get back to our own life and do the transactions globally. So, value for money, value for time, value for our sensitivity, value for our thinking, value for our future, value for our past. I think there is nothing there. How can we expect architecture with value to be inner? How would you get this kind of hot space here and you get only hard soft light and hard light and then these columns in semi-light? The drama will not happen. The drama can only happen when you have a drawing and you have this dream and you are trying to create that dream through your design and you are your hand is moving and you are visualizing these spaces, and then you feel the sunlight coming. You feel shiver, you feel something, and that just push the column there, and then you push the column there. So that instinct, that sensitivity, like they play guitar, they play music, so they are connected to that string and that little senses of the tips. Very nice. Why we can't do like this work? Do we have time? What? do we have? We don't think of time, but we also say we don't have time. How come? And what is always wonderful, we don't get connected because we don't have time to pause. આપણે રાહ નથી જોતા, કોઈ બેસતા નથી, અને એની બેસ છે, આરામ નથી, કોઈ એક દુનિયા વરસાદ છે, વાદળા છે. So atmosphere is the key of architecture. How do we create an atmosphere which would take you into another mood, and that mood would create unexpected thoughts, and the thoughts would have to unravel stories which are very deep inside. And in those stories you remember your childhood or your other episodes, and you become suddenly one. Or an idea, story, memory. It's exactly like having a good meal. You have a bird, you have a good meal, and you have a good bird, and then say, oh, what a wonderful meal I had. That's good. It's fantastic. Actually, I am reading a very strange book. You may like to read that book called Dancing Stillness or something. There are 4 or 5 people who have gone through meditation, and they go through this whole episodes. A beautiful book. And they all are different saints, they are all realized souls. So they talk about this kind of an issue, that how does one get into this situation? How we got it so that Kali, the awakening inside and that trauma that goes through. But the whole idea is we are too much connected with ourselves. So you are not allowing how your real self, the universal saw all these crazy things happening, and then you decided to do the building, you will get some kind of swing like this, going to the infinite place, and somewhere, you are finding a little rope, from there somebody is climbing down, and there, there's a well that you can go down. All those things will happen, and supposing that if you want to view these things, do you know those sections? What fantastic sections you get. But then we said, how do I build it? What will be the estimate? And who will do this and not possible? So we start with no. You tell me, Gufa, how the hell it can happen? I think very often about that. I said, what kind of mind I had that time that I could do that before. The work is going on, the drawings are different from the work, the construction is made differently, and they bring this the steel structure, and that structure is put hanging there. One column is there, one column is here. And now Ranga was telling me, sir, what shall we do? I said, bring the bamboo stick. I said, where is the column? There. I said, okay. Then let's put the bamboo, you hold here. Then I would say, but you want that curve, no? So I will press this here, I will press and say, this curve is all right now. So you get the curve like this. Now the column is here. Then I said, but now you have to hold and go like this. And then I shake it. Structure is done and the whole roof is like, floor is like this. I forgot about it. 9 o'clock in the morning. I go there and I slipped because it was slope, no? My God. So I called the fellow and I said, get 20 trucks of sand. And I filled the sand. But then I had thought about this. Then I stand on the seashore, and then I made the slope. And when I was doing these slopes, to meet this curve and this curve, how do you put the junction? Then I remembered Varaha in Khajuraho, where Vishnu is going, Varaha comes and picks up Vishnu's wife, like this. So that structure has made a shape like this of the leaf, of the stone. You chisel the stone like this and comes like this and the flat stone happens. And this leaf is free. And I did that correction. I must be transformed. time and energy are unmeasurable. Immeasurable, you don't see them, only you experience them. The best way is let it pass. Who cares? Our problem is our connection with past and future. Remove both. Past, there's nothing like that. It's all notional. What they say today right, tomorrow they say wrong. A historian will come and say this is all useless. Primitive drawing on the wall hanging, the rock-cut temples and all that, or you go to Ellora and others and you see those sculptures and all that, nobody knows really how it happened. How can that elephant, no, Ellora carving can happen from top and come down. That completely shook me. That has shaken me completely. What kind of a thing, 5th generation, 6th generation, 8th generation, and now he knows where the camera is, and in between there is a rock. And at that camera there is this kind of figure. And he is carving from here. It is not there. How does he do that and he does it so perfect? I mean, the Ravan comes, with that Sita Haran on the chariot. And it's a little fresco, like the sculpture. But you see this Ravan going and that Sita and everything and that Garudni, but the other bird, how can he draw and do that? I don't understand. I don't understand the figures. I don't understand that this little carving and the eye and then the look and the expression of the figures. How can you draw deities, whether it's Lakshmi or it's Goddess Saraswati, and the posture like this? How does he know that, and then this is all follow? How does he carve? I saw 2 sculptures in Washington Museum years ago. They were the king and the queen from Burma, Thailand or somewhere, this figure, full size. And I looked at them, marveled. What beautiful, and suddenly I see that there was a breath and the breeze was flowing. And they were tucked somewhere and the muslin moved like this. What is it? How does he know that this lady, the goddess or the queen, is now standing there and the breeze is touching her body? Those things have shaken me up completely. I can't believe this. And that is why I believe that you allow yourself to move as much as possible. Your hand moves like this, let it go. If the hand says, now go there, you go there. If it says draw a line, the hand will stop there. It's not your hand.
Thank you for the masterpiece work, Architect B.V and Mr. Premjit. Now, I humbly request Architect B.V Ramachandran and Mr. Premjit Ramachandran to take us through your memories and experiences you had with Architect B.V Doshi.
You go first.
So, hello and thank you everyone for coming and being part of this experience. Is it clear? My voice is clear? Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. So 2007, I just returned from London and I just started getting into films and I was looking for a project to do. And Bijoy suggested meeting Doshi. And I had never heard of him before, so I thought let's see what happens. So we landed up in Ahmedabad without anything, no camera, nothing. Before that, actually in Bangalore, we did some sessions with some architects, half an hour to a person, but none of that made it to the first film final. So we went to Ahmedabad and we found this guy who rents out video cameras. We rented a video camera out. We went and met Doshi, and the moment I saw him, I was completely magnetized by his personality. I was, because I'm like interested in spiritual people also, monks and sadhus and stuff. So for me, it was completely like meeting a sadhu, a monk. But he was an architect, and that for me was a turning point, And then we made the film, we were working on it for 2 years. We went a few times to Ahmedabad, and we decided to do it completely pro bono, completely for our own experience sake, So we decided to go there and make this film. 2 years went by. We screened it in quite a few film festivals and went to a lot of places here and there. It was in the curriculum of a lot of schools. And that was amazing. It was a great experience. And then after that, I made many more films. And then in 2019, we were thinking of doing a part 2, 10 years later. We tried to go to Ahmedabad a couple of times before, but it never worked out. This time, luckily, there was this great person called Ruturaj Parekh who was organizing this festival in Goa called Frame Conclave. So he suggested, why don't we go to Ahmedabad and just try again to do the second part with Doshi. So I thought that it might not be possible, but we just decided to give it a shot. And 2 visits, we made very short trips these times. First one was just like 2 days, second one was 4 days. Came back and I came back to Tiruvannamalai and I sat 2 weeks, edited, spending 10 hours, 8-10 hours a day, putting the music and everything together, and finally screened it at the conclave. Sorry, that's my cat in the background. So the film, the second one was also amazing because for us it was like a perfect circle, We saw an amazing transition from what we were as human beings, our personalities, transforming over 10 years and meeting him again. And throughout our lives, he has been an integral part of our life. It's not been like we made a project and it was a closed project and that's it. We spoke to him so often, every month, every week. Bijoy spoke to him a lot during a particular phase, and we had like such a close contact with him all the time. And he was like a grandfather figure for us. We felt so close being with him, like family. He gave us food and he took us everywhere, and he never ever showed any sign of exhaustion. He was always alive and like a child, waiting to see new things and learning new things all the time, shooting his own buildings even at the age of 90. So these things, and amazing, so many experiences. I mean, I'm just like showing you tip of the iceberg here. What we learned is like it's changed us personally as human beings and made us realize so many other things about what we are through him, and that is what is the best part of it. So the film is like secondary. The first thing as personality and like consciousness, evolution of consciousness, he has been like integral part. So yeah, and it's been great. Give it to Bijoy for giving his experience, and you can ask us any questions later on.
Yeah, it was a completely, serendipitous thing that we did to make this film. I mean, Prem had come back, like you said, and I had made this other film which is quite unwatchable. But when Prem was here, I thought maybe this is a good chance. Prem knows a little bit about filmmaking, and maybe we can take this, excuse and find some time to spend with Doshi, because I had worked at the office years ago. And he is, like Prem said, completely, he's got an incredible persona. I mean, it just feels like he has all the time for you. And this is true for everybody, not just us. And everybody has that connection with Doshi. Like one of his sons-in-law was saying that he makes it an image of the family, that everybody then gets consumed into this big family yeah, I think the films have been a great good fortune, and the fact that Prem and I also spent a lot of time together because of that. It brought us together, and we call Doshi the master of elastic time. You know that he somehow seems to be able to stretch the time that he has with everybody and with everything, and just found ways to make the most of it. I mean, what he says is beautiful in that first chapter that we sort of did. That where do we find that? I mean, where do we pause and sit and just enjoy the breeze and the evening sun? And do we do that? Do we take time out to do that? And great architecture invites you to linger. And that's, I mean, all of his buildings, they're built in a way that you feel, I mean, he had this joke about timeless architecture where a great timeless building is a building where even if you're late for a meeting, you feel like you should spend some more time there. That you just, it just invited you to just forget about everything else and just be able to pause, you know, and look around and smell the roses, as they say. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, the second film again was a complete by chance. We thought about doing it, you know, a number of times, Prem and I, just because you know we could then allow us again this opportunity to be with him and just be in his company. And then when Rukraj was doing the conference in Goa, it was just, you know, by magic that everything fell in place. And like Prem was saying, I mean, both the films are completely made, directed, you know, the music, everything's done by Prem. I was just there, lucky to be sort of, you know, on the sidelines watching Prem work, but also spending time with Doshi. So it's really a labor of love for him. I mean, the second film particularly, I remember telling me it's like a fever dream, you know, just sitting and putting this film together. And it's just, I don't know, like Doshi says in the second, you know, at the end, that it's not your hand, that somehow in that moment there is some sort of divinity, you know, that it comes into you and then expresses itself through you. I mean, two films are just like, we think of it as some sort of great karmic good fortune, you know, that we did some great good deeds in some past life that we got this time and this time together. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for screening it. It's quite strange to be watching the films now. I haven't watched them. I mean, only in snippets because it's been a bit difficult to watch the films. But you know, it's strange to be seeing the films and to be hearing him and to imagine that you go to Ahmedabad and not be able to go and see him. It's a weird and strange realization.
Respected architect Premjit sir and architect Bijoy sir, your journey towards shaping into filmmakers from aspirants is undoubtedly an inspiration to a lot of us, as it gives us, the young students, so much confidence in attempting to push our efforts to explore beyond the conventional architecture. It was truly amazing to listen to the experiences you have had with Sri B.V Doshi. We'll remember your reference to Sri Doshi, the master.
I can show you, you guys have a minute, I'll just show you one photograph. It's a classic photograph with the three of us. Hold on one second. Are you able to hear me? Yes?
Yes, sir.
But you can, this idea of the master of elastic time, you can see that. Hold on one second. So, are you able to see the images? Yes?
Yes, sir.
That's, I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear anybody, so. Are you able to see it, Prem? Are you able to see the photographs? Yeah. Okay, so this is Prem and Doshi at Indology. This is shooting the first film. Prem is looking very different. And this is the second film. This is at Sādhanā. I mean, the chapter that you just saw. This is, you know, when magically, Doshi was just talking about the rain coming down into, you know, why he was at Sardis an earlier time, and like magic, he summons the rains, you know, and it just completely explodes. An amazing, amazing
Your enthusiasm is truly fascinating and we thank you so much for your time, sir. This is certainly a cherishable memory for us. Thank you so much once again to Mr. Premjit and Architect Bijoy. Any students up with any questions?
Good afternoon, sir. My question is for both of you. As you know, you have
Sorry, there is an echo. I don't know if there are multiple things logged in. There's an echo. We are not able to hear it clearly.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is for you. As you interacted.
Bijoy, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, okay, you can use this mic.
Thanks.
Hello, am I audible now? Hello, sir. My question is for the both of you guys. As you have talked and interacted with B.V Doshi sir personally, I'd like to ask you that what is something that Doshi sir believed in, and that's something that you would like to pass on to the future generation of architects and designers, or simply humans.
Yeah, I would say that, the main thing that I have learned is that however old you grow, you should stay as young as you can. So you should keep learning, keep drawing, keep doing whatever you do creatively till your last. This is the thing, and keep staying young. And that's what I learned from him, and I'm trying to use that one major thing in my life so that we can stay fresh all the time. We never get bogged down to anything, because we are creative people, right? So we always be creative doing whatever we want. We feel blessed to have that creative talent. So we can take that till our last days. So that is the gift that we have, and we should believe. That's my learning. More than the architecture, the teacher, the father, all these things. As a core human
Yeah, just an extension of what you said. He is also always open to anything. So the film itself, the first film when we called him, I think on a Friday. I picked up the phone and called Sangat, and then they put me through to him, and I said, I don't know if you remember me, sir. I worked in the office, etc. And that my brother's here. We wanted to come and make a film, with you. And so then he pauses for a minute, and then he says, "Are you free on Monday?" It's like he's, and to be open like that, to see where it goes, So let's try it out. Let's see where it goes. To be completely open to a situation. That's incredible. We are all always sort of a bit circumspect. We don't know, whether we should engage, we should collaborate. Doshi had that ability to just dive in completely and just sort of partake of the situation. So that I think, I have not been able to really act on that. I'm still very, very sort of conservative in that sense. But it is a great lesson. It is a sort of ambition that you're completely open and ready for the world. And that, I think that's what really kept him young, to be always curious, to be always ready to try it out, to give it a shot. That's amazing.
Another thing I'd like to add is that the other thing that I learned is how he speaks to anyone with the same attitude and the same we had no differentiation. We talk to a driver, a dhoti, and like a minister at the same time on the same level. We connect with people at so many different levels that he knows people at various different levels who have affected their lives. And it's like a vast, huge family that he is carrying with him, which is going to go on for eternity. It's massive. And we are so lucky to have been, it's like a lifetime project, to do something like this. One project like this is we have done creating that put.
He also had an amazing memory. I mean, I don't know how one can emulate that. I remember once, I don't know if you remember, we were in Swati, Swati Foods, we'd gone to have lunch. And this is, I mean, we were doing the 2019 film. And so we're sitting and having lunch, and this guy comes, this guy, slightly older gentleman, he comes to the table and he just stands there and he says, Pranam Doshi. And for a minute, Doshi, I mean, Doshi didn't, I don't think he recognized him, but then he sort of summoned all of his sort of, faculties, and then he said, Madhya Pradesh Electricity Board. He remembered the project, and then he then sort of made the connection. But that ability to remember, to be able to, I mean, even with us, I mean, he knew thousands of people, and everybody, was like we said earlier, like part of the family. But he would ask me about my mom or my mother-in-law, about her knees and her hip. She just had a hip surgery. When he came once long back, he would continue to ask me about that. I mean, he would make these connections that immediately make him intimately connected to you. This ability to really relate to people, what Prem was saying. That it really felt like he was listening to what you're saying, that he was there in the moment physically. That's amazing, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any more questions?
Good afternoon, sir. So the question that I would like to ask to both of you is that, like in one of the movies, Doshi sir made a comment telling that, are we really an illusion, or like are we really existing? A comment like that. So what would you like to say about the philosophical thoughts that Doshi sir had and the conversations that you had with them?
That was for you, Greg.
I think, that is kind of self-explanatory, but he says about illusion and apical. He's just trying to tell us what is the importance of being alive in this moment, and not consider that we are like just a passing thing. That is a much more important, our existence as some kind of, I don't know how you explain that point. What do you think about that? How to explain that in more detail?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the fact that, I don't know, I mean, this is my reading of it, that he's also not taking himself too seriously, that I'm a person with all the abilities. I mean, the great work that they produce in the office, for me at least in the way that I read, the work is very, very inconsistent. There's a lot of work that isn't very good, but there's also incredibly sublime projects, of course. But the only way that can happen in an office where it isn't about the persona, that it isn't about, the big architect making the sketch and then giving it out to others to draw it up, that it is in a way completely open for this collaboration. And so, to think of it as an illusion, I don't know, this is probably a very prosaic reading of that you don't take yourself too seriously, that you're just a sort of passing, actor in this sort of large saga of things. And that you come in to be ready to collaborate and participate fully. I don't know. Yeah, it's probably a very simple sort of reading.
Once again, thank you, Architect B.V Doshi and Mr. Mr. Premjit Ramachandran, for your presence. With over 23 years of experience in architectural, interior and landscape design for the commercial, healthcare, hospitality and residential sectors, Praveen Ram is the principal architect of Badologa, based in Calicut, Kerala. He completed his BR degree from MFCA Pune in 2000. After that, he worked for numerous companies, both domestically and overseas, before establishing their own business, which is currently working on projects in Kerala and Oroville, Pondicherry. He was a former visiting faculty at numerous schools for architecture and interior design, including Agni Institute of Design, NIT in Calicut, and many others in India. He had the honor of taking part in a number of workshops that changed his life, including the Bangalore workshop at the IIM Bangalore, which was held by various eminent master architects, including B.V Doshi. He was also one of the 6 architects asked to serve as team leaders for the annual IDA workshop conducted at CT Trivandrum, which is supervised and directed by architect Kevin Lowe. He received recognition from the Rotary Foundation for Distinguished Architectural Service in the area of education and literature by developing and building Anganwadis for their children as well as restrooms for government schools in Calicut. This was done to raise the living standards of the community of fishermen's children. I welcome architect Praveen Ram to the dais.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi. I would like to first thank SCMS College for inviting me here, and this is a great honor for the Masters Memorial. This, what I'm going to share with all of you, has been shared only in close circles with friends and with architects who are passionate about architecture. This is the first time I will be sharing this experience of mine. This is very, very personal with a public, on a public platform. That's only because it's a college. You will know why. First of all, I would like to, is B.V still on? Yeah. So I would like to thank B.V and Premjit for that movie of theirs, and that has changed everything for me. So let's start, right? Doshi. What is Doshi for me? It was just a 5-minute conversation with him. You would think just 5 minutes, what do you get in 5 minutes? This was 9 years back in 2014. But to tell you about this conversation, I'll have to go back to my college days where I studied in Pune in the year from 95 to 2000. I've heard about Doshi for the first time from my teachers, and then I happened to see and hear him for the first time in Pune while in college in a seminar by an organization in Pune. I remember him as a very witty architect, where one of my classmates, he asked him a question from the audience. He asked Doshi, Laurie Baker's in love with brick, Corbusier's in love with concrete. What are you in love with? And Doshi answered, I'm too young to fall in love. And this was coming from a 69-year-old man. And so that was that is a very, very strong memory of him in college. Then I finished college and went on to work with many commercial, conventional firms all around, many in India and abroad. And then I started my practice in 2010. So I started practice thinking that I knew everything and I was all set to take on the world. I started just 2 years into practice. I was doing all kinds of projects, small projects mostly. At that time, IIA Calicut had arranged a movie festival. And this movie festival had 3 movies shown. One was Doshi, the one Bijoy and Prenjit has done. The one, then Volume 0 on Charles Correa, and My Architect on Louis Kahn. These 3 movies had a very, very strong and deep impact on me. It just shook me, especially this movie on Doshi. I keep telling Bijoy and Prenjit that this movie was something. And after that, after seeing that movie, I go back to office the next day. And then I couldn't draw anymore. I couldn't pick a pencil after that. I couldn't draw, forget design. And then I didn't know what to do because this movie had so many strong messages that I started questioning what I was doing. And I wanted to find meaning in what I was doing. I was just doing architecture. I thought that was architecture and I was doing something. And then I couldn't practice. And then I was on like this and then everything started happening. Now is the real thing. I go to a friend of mine in Calicut. He's a structural engineer, and he tells me one day that there's some architect from Pune. He's come and he was in my office today. And I said, architect from Pune. Who's this architect? He said Girish Doshi. Have you heard of Girish Doshi? Girish Doshi is the most beloved student of B.V. Doshi. He considers him like a son. He's so good, and he's a very, very good architect. And I know him because I was in Pune. I've studied in Pune, and I was like thrilled. How can Girish Doshi land up in Calicut? And then I tell my friend, why don't we just call him? He gets the number. I'll call Girish Doshi and tell him, sir, I'm from Pune. I'm here in Calicut. I would like to meet you. Girish Doshi immediately says, let's meet for dinner and talk. I go and meet him, and while having dinner, I tell him about this. I tell him that it's very difficult for me to practice now. Something has changed within me, and I cannot practice. Instead of giving me a lecture on architecture or guiding me, he simply said, why don't you do one thing? This was in August 2014. I remember it very clearly, the first week of August 2014. And Girish Doshi tells me, why don't you do one thing? Why don't you go to Ahmedabad on August 26th? Go to Doshi and wish him on his birthday. I said, why? I was like shocked. He said, just go and just wish him on his birthday. I said, how will I get the answer to my troubles? He said, you just go, just wish and just come back. Even if he says nothing to you, you will get your answer. And then and he leaves it at that, and he leaves, he goes. And then I simply book a train to Ahmedabad, and I'm on a train to Ahmedabad to see Doshi. Imagine going to Ahmedabad just to see Doshi. I don't know Doshi, and he's this 86-year-old man and a huge master, right? So I go, I land up at his, Girish Doshi told me go to his house, don't go to his office. So I go to Kamla house. My train is supposed to reach in the morning. It reaches 6 hours late. I reach Ahmedabad in the afternoon. I go to Kamla house straight from the station, and his son-in-law opens the door. He's an artist and he's a Malayali. Perfect. So he tells me, Kerala, he says, and he takes me inside. And I'm sitting with him in the living room and talking to him. And then I tell him, so I want to just, I would like to. He didn't ask me, did you take an appointment? Nothing. So Doshi, after the morning puja, means his birthday, so there was a puja and all that. After lunch, he was sleeping. He was taking a nap. So Mr. Vasudevan goes inside, talks to Doshi, tells him that somebody is there from Kerala. So Doshi doesn't recall anybody taking an appointment. So he tells him that tell him to wait at the office. So, but I get to see Kamla house. I'm sitting in Kamla house. So I say, he comes out, he tells me, you wait at the office. Doshi's asked you to do that. I go to the office, I wait at Sangat. And then Doshi walks in at 4 o'clock in the evening. I'm waiting there in the reception. I see him. I go to him, sir, I'm so-and-so, and I've come to just see you. I just need a few minutes with you. He looks at me and he says, have you taken an appointment? No, I have not. Okay, you come after 1 week. I've gone all the way from Kerala to Ahmedabad, and he tells me to come back after 1 week. So I tell him, so I've come from Kerala. No, I'm too busy today. I won't be able to see you. You come after 1 week. I had got some chips and alwa and all that stuff for him. I give it to him. He takes that and he goes. So, but he doesn't meet me. He says, thank you for this, and he just leaves. And then I am sitting there at the reception, thinking what to do now. No? Whatever, I've come all the way, I can't go back to Kerala now. I sit there. I don't go, I don't budge. I decided that I'm going to see Doshi and only leave. I'm not going to leave otherwise. I sit there. And at the reception, I sit there for almost an hour or two, quite a long time. And there's this lady at the reception. She's been with Doshi for a long time, I think, an old lady. She calls me. She's like, son, why are you sitting here? Means you've been sitting for a long time. So I told her that I've come all the way and I have to see him. So she tells me, let me see what I can do. And she goes in and talks to Doshi. And Doshi calls me. I go into his room. You know Doshi, glaring eyes, is looking at me. No smile, nothing on his face. What do you want? You come. I'll give you 2 minutes. Tell me what you want. Then he tells me to sit down. He won't make me stand. He'll like, you sit. Okay, you tell me what you want. And just imagine, I'm sitting in front of Doshi for the first time in my life. He's looking at me with those eyes. And he's asking me to say. And I couldn't say anything. So he says, have you come to look at me? I said, no, sir, I have something to tell you. And I tell him that there's something wrong in what I'm practicing and I cannot practice anymore. I don't know why I've frozen. Then he asked me, where have you worked earlier? Where did you study and where have you worked? So I told him these. I've worked abroad, all that. I gave him. Then he told me, now that's your problem. He says, I'll tell you exactly what he says. He says, you have dirtied yourself. You have dirtied yourself. You take out your dirty linen. Linen is clothes, right? You take out your dirty linen, keep it aside, go take a shower, put on new linen and start again. So I tell him, I understood what he said. What he's saying is, start again. And I tell him, sir, but 12 years of my practice, He says, throw it out of the window. Throw it out of the window and start again. And if you start again, do not slip again. Do not dirty yourself again. And then I asked him one more question, one last question. How do I start? He says, fortunately for me, there was an exhibition happening in Delhi in November, 3 months from then, which had 50 years of Doshi's works, all his models, all his drawings, everything. 50 years of his works were exhibited at the National Gallery in Delhi. What timing? Perfect. So he said, go there, go to Delhi, stay there, study all my works, go to the museum, see my works, and start. He must have not expected it. So I leave, I say thank you. And one last thing was, of course, before leaving the room, I told him I want a photograph with you, and I took one. Because you don't go to Ahmedabad, see Doshi and not take a picture with it, right? So I go, and that was the most amazing decision of my life, because not just meeting Doshi, I was in Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad has the works of all the masters. And it was like I had scheduled a 1-week thing in Ahmedabad, and it was like an architectural pilgrimage for me. I saw Corbusier, I saw Khan, I saw Doshi, I saw everything, everyone's works. And it was a whole change for me, completely. He's told me, start again. So this is starting again. And then I go to Delhi. I don't think he expected me to go to Delhi, but I go to Delhi. I spent 10 days in Delhi. Every day when the National Gallery was opening, in the morning I would be there till evening, standing and sketching all his works. There were no chairs, nothing. I was standing the whole day and sketching. On the last day, there's a talk by Doshi. I meet him I go in the morning, same way. In the morning I'm there at the door of the museum, and there's nobody around, but Doshi walks in. He's the first man to reach there after me. So he sees me. I ask him, sir, do you remember me? He doesn't remember because he's seen so many people, so he's just trying to figure out. Then I told him I had come to see you from Kerala. He said, yes, I remember. And then he told me something. He told me that I never expected you to be here. I thought you were just talking. And then I showed him all those sketches which I had done, and he gave me a very, very good compliment. He said that you are one of the very few people who have sketched my projects proportionately. So he saw all that. He loved my sketches, and he wrote something for me. I will show you all that. And that is how my journey began again. So this is, and everything, and like he says, he always says that everything will start moving if you really want it, right? So the next, what happened is, this happened November 2015, July or August, the Bangalore workshop. Bangalore workshop was done by the Vimal Jain Foundation. B.V. was the key person organizing. It was with those three, it was in IIM Bangalore. Just imagine, in IIM Bangalore, with Doshi and those two masters from Australia, Peter and Richard, yeah, sorry. So that 1 week in Bangalore was amazing. Imagine Doshi is like faculty. He's sitting there and he's looking at your drawings and he's actually there teaching design. So that happened. That happened with just 30 people, and it was a life changer. So everything started moving. So this movie of Bijoy and Premjit has done so much to me as a person. So why I keep sharing this is, and I share it only when I see students, because I have lost 10 years doing rubbish. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't lose it. So this message is from the master, and this message was not just for me. It is for all of you who's really looking for meaning in what you do. And I see every day I practice architecture, I am very, very careful not to dirty my linen again. Yeah. So I would like to just show you some slides from what I have already told you. And yeah. That's my friend, that's B.V Doshi. And that's the structural engineer friend of mine. That's me in his office. And this is 9 years back. That's the exhibition in Delhi, National Gallery. These are just few pictures, a huge one. It's a huge. These are some of my sketches from the gallery. Those 10 days of sketching Doshi's works, some of them. All of its projects are there. And this, when you draw something, it goes within you, right? Immediately, instantly. When you take picture, it doesn't go within you. But when you draw, it just goes in. This is the Bangalore workshop. The two masters, Peter and Richard, with Doshi. That's me there. And two architects from Kerala, that is Jill's there, and Simi here. Ar.Bijoy was there in the second batch. And we had a jury presentation, and just like college, we couldn't sleep, we had to night marrow and do all that, but it was worth it. In the end, he loved what we did, and perfect. That's what he wrote for me when I met him outside the gallery. That's me on 26th August 2014 with the man. He's smiling here, but he wasn't when he was talking to me. And I would like to end this with his quote. If you are highly motivated, your thoughts about your aspiration and dreams travel, reach out, and eventually the cosmic forces create situations for them to happen really. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your personal memories with us. We realize how much a movie could potentially change our perspectives to our approaches. Your memories of visiting Sri Doshi, just like how much is memory to you, will be an essence of memory, which we would love to remember your presence and talk here with us. Thank you for virtually taking us through your experiences at the Sādhanā and Kamala House too. Thank you for reminding us that we ought to start afresh at every juncture of our first points through Doshi's works. We are truly thankful for your time and gracious presence with us. Thank you, sir. Architect Jose Binoy holds a degree in architecture from the Department of Architecture and College of Engineering, Trivandrum, Kerala, and hails from a family of furniture makers. He has worked directly with Crystal Laureate Dr. B.V Doshi, Architect Rajiv Katpadia, Architect Zupru, Architect Paul Danshin, and Architect Klaus Peter Gast, according to his portfolio. With 17 years of professional experience, he has worked on campus and institutional projects and is still very interested in both the design of public buildings and individual architectural items. His love of music led him to pursue Western classical guitar training, and he received a 5th grade certification from the ABRSM in London. He also composes music for short films and produces soundtracks for them. Architect Jose founded Building and Living under a Wooded Urban Tree, an architecture and furniture design company, in 2013 as a result of his love for wood and childhood collection furniture workshop. He also served as a guest professor at the Company Institute of Design in Kozhikode, Kerala. I welcome R.Bijoy to the dais.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm not so very used to stand in a dais and talk, so I'm a bit nervous. Yes. Yeah. First of all, I'm very much thankful to SCMS School of Architecture for inviting me here and to pay a tribute to Doshi. And also I'm glad that I'm here because of him. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And so when sharing my memory about Doshi would be like, I wanted to do a training at Sangha. That was way back in 2002, 2003. So that was the time when the riots happened in Ahmedabad. So it didn't happen. I couldn't go. Then after my graduation, I wanted to really go and work with him. So that took me one more year after working with Peter Gast. After reaching Sangat, my intention was to work with him. When I asked the interviewer, Rajiv Katpali, I asked him, can I work with Doshi? Then he said, no, you cannot. So that's impossible because there are, I said okay. But I nevertheless, they were happy to take me in. That was fortunate for me to get in Sangha, and so I started working there. After a week, Doshi comes into the office. Every day he visits the office every day, like in the afternoons. The morning session would be before 90s. I think he used to go to college the first half would be in the CEPT University and second half would be in the office, studio, where he would come and design and spend his time. So when I was there, he was actually spending his morning hours in the house itself, and then return and comes back to the office at about 2:30, after his lunch. So one day he comes and then he wants one person to go with him to IIM Ahmedabad. So Rajiv calls me and then we go. And the first thing he asks me is, do you have a book? Do you have a sketchbook? So obviously, I didn't have. Yeah. Do you have a pen? No. I had some pencil with me, and then so he asked me to get a notepad from the Kaka. I get one, and what the best thing that I found there was that they used to, after printing drawings, whatever waste that goes into the waste bin will be taken and cut into sizes, and then is made a book for students, trainees, architects, whoever needs it, who can afford buying a book, then to keep it with them, and so they can sketch or they can make notes, whatever. So I take one of these books and go with him, and then I learn how one can observe. So why I'm telling you all this is because, as a student, you are distracted with many things. Obviously, you are bound to be distracted. But then, an observation is a skill that you have to have the time. So he spends there 3 hours in IIM Ahmedabad, and I was wondering what is there to do in 3 hours. But then he wants me to also observe together with him. He was explaining what he was actually been experiencing while he was a part of the project, while he was Louis Khan was executing the project. So that was my first experience with Doshi. And I was wondering what I should be telling you after this when I come here. So this was my first one-on-one experience with him. But my thesis was on Institute of Indology. So I had this chance to stay in one of his dormitories, which was designed for the Institute of Indology. In the campus itself, there is a small guest house. That was the point when I understood that architecture can make a huge difference in a person if it is properly designed. I mean, when you say properly designed, means you are involved in each and every bit of it. You cannot just let it go, just let it be. That's the end of it. Or, okay, every art is abandoned, not finished, but at some point you have to have that excellence. So we can see, so that's the first time I was in a small place, though it was a guest house, it was designed. The toilet, I still remember the toilet. And last time, so that was in 2005, and then 2007 I am working with Doshi at Doshi's office, and then I come back in 2009 because of some reasons which I have to be at home, and then again I go in 2010. Rather they call me back, so I go again, and I find every Friday there is a talk by Doshi at the office. Every Friday, 3:30 to 5:30 is a talk time. So you get to hear him every week. Whatever, maybe he's talking to you about a project, or maybe he's discussing a project which is already being under design in the office. So every time there's a new discussion happening in the studio. So that's how he used to engage in the life of a student. He didn't want anybody who comes there to leave the premises without being influenced to be a good person, at least. So that was the kind of involvement that he used to do with everybody. He used like Bijoy and Prem said, he is the man of elastic time. Absolutely yes, because whenever somebody tells, that's the example that when Prem, he could give that 2 minutes. That 2 minutes changed his life. That's what he said. And so I can imagine what, the influence that he must have had with many others, including me. Yeah. And so spending in an office for 7 years, which Doshi designed, was like a life-changing experience for me. In the second tenure, I was I was a part of competitions like IIM, Udaipur, Nalanda University. So every day he comes in the afternoon, he wants to see what is on the tag board. What happens these days, in the earlier days, he says, we used to draw on the drawing table and everybody could see the drawings which is drawn. Now, everything sits inside the computer and in your brain, and nothing is shown outside. So every day he wants it to be printed and then displayed on the board, so that you yourself can see, or somebody else can see, and somebody can comment on it, you yourself. So he says, he in his own words, he would say, "Ye barabar to hai nahi, kal to barabar tha." Yesterday it was good, but today it is not good, so what to do? So that's the kind of attitude that he used to have. He used to keep changing like anything. nobody could even work with him so patiently that he would change every detail. Even if it is built, he would go there and ask them to break it down and then change it again. So that was the kind of attitude that he used to work with when, yeah. And after leaving Sangat, I used to visit every year to meet him and to meet Sangat and to meet Doshi. So every year we used to spend half an hour at least. Whenever I met him, he used to spend time. At least he would have the time to take us in the car from the office to this house, and then he would talk while we are in the car. So last time I met him was in 2019, and that time he wanted me to play guitar in his studio, in his office, to show his grandson how to study the classical guitar. So I had that opportunity to do that in his cabin. In 2018, we had a long discussion of half an hour, and then that is when he said, something like very important that he said. Nothing is better than something. So that struck me like when Premjit was saying that it is very similar to what finally what he gave to Premjit, like nothing is better than something, because if you have something, then you are actually not going anywhere actually. So it is better to have nothing than something. So you are free. So basically you are free to, So, and he also talked about how he was extending Sangat. So that was like 40 years after he designed Sangat, and he wanted to do this extension of 3 meters wide and then 35 meters long. So then his question was, how would his grandchild look like, and still we would see him as a family member. So that's the kind of thinking that he used to have while he was designing. So everything that he used to design, he has to do with life. Nothing is out of life, nothing is out of culture, nothing is climate, nothing is... So everything is... His main principle was about celebrate life. How do you celebrate life? Like if it is a sorrow, celebrate it. If it is a joy, celebrate it. If it is love, celebrate it. So celebrating everything. So celebrating it through architecture. So then I asked him, how do you manifest that spiritual thinking into physical realm? So he was like, that he doesn't know. And that's exactly what Bijay had captured him saying, that if he was drawing the line, let the line take you, let the hand take you. Like he was always trying to be in a state of trance where he didn't want an ego in him which stopped him from being expressive. So that's a different stature of mindset when I think you will not be able to understand it now, I feel. Maybe because from the mindset I used to have. But maybe after 10 years or 15 years down the line, maybe when you see this film again, then you will have a different understanding of that. So it's like reading the book after 5 years, 10 years. So that's why I used to visit every year to meet him. And whenever we met, he used to ask one question: are you happy? That's the only question that remained, because I remember, as far as I remember, nobody would have asked me, are you happy? Even my parents, my siblings, are you happy? That's a very strange question to somebody ask. And he used to ask this every time when we meet. So I am sure that he would be asking the same question to himself when he designed, like, am I happy? That's the point where he might be stopping. I don't know if he stops or not, but he would be he would be constantly asking this question, am I happy when he design or draw or, yeah. So that is the point of love. I mean, transcends you from just being a normal person or, yeah. So I feel that he's been a door, like a Buland Darwaza, you know. He has been a door, like letting people go through him and inspiring and still inspiring and still keeping inspiring many more to come. And yeah. So to be a person like that, you need to actually, Bijoy was saying that it's the same thing that I would say, you know, it's how to emulate that is tough. I don't know how to do that, but yeah, we have to start somewhere, yeah. So, yeah. So some points which I think, which was already covered here, I mean, everybody would say he was like a child. He was constant learner, like constantly observing and learning and trying to be inspired. One day he comes with a sketch to me in the office and then says, this is what I found when I went to Finland. Finland, he goes to an auditorium, then he sits there and then he finds that chair is auto-closing and then the table in front, the chair behind had a movable stand which somebody can put a pen and paper to draw on or write down any something. So he is so inspired that he finds something, if he finds something which is very good, he then picks it up and then he wants it to bring it and then try to study it. At that age of 80, 85, he was still being a child, looking at things as new as possible. So that was, he was relating it to, because I was doing IIM Ahmedabad's classroom in 2006. The first incident when we went was, we were trying to design new chairs, new seating arrangement for IIM Ahmedabad's classroom. So he still remembered that, and then he brings back a sketch from Finland in 2016 and brings it to me and says, this is something that we have to do, we must have done in So that's a kind of memory or kind of like a seeker. Like if he will not stop if he's not happy. So even though we designed and finished the IIM Ahmedabad classroom, still he is not happy about it. Still he was not happy about it. If he gets a chance, he would change. That's the kind of attitude. So that needs time and patience, and also such an observance that you cannot be, you cannot just fool around actually. At the same time, you have to be playful. So that is the kind of person that he was. We cannot say he was working or he was playing. He was doing the both together actually. So, yeah. And another thing is about his dreams. He would dream, like literally he would want to dream. In the midst of projects, he would go home and sleep and then come back next day. And then, or maybe, I mean, whenever he has a dream, he would come the next day, early morning. That day we can understand that he had a dream. And he would come and say, I had a dream, this is something like this. So till yesterday he had a design that is ditched. That's in the waste bin now. He wants a new design there. So even if we are preparing for a meeting tomorrow, he doesn't care. He is with a new fresh design, fresh idea, that's what. And the next day he would be presenting that only, nothing else. Yeah. And one of my, I used to stay with Hardik Jagat, who used to, he has done more work with him closely with Doshi. So he was part of the Sangad extension and Manisha Doshi house and the final projects that he was doing. So he was also doing an extension for Gandhi Labour Institute. So when he goes to the meeting with the minister, on the way he would ask the name of the car driver, he would ask the name of the peon, the watchman, everybody who is on the way, and then finally meets the minister. And the project is only 50 lakhs, but after the meeting, the project has been sanctioned for 5 crores. So that is a kind of persona, that's a kind of aura that he has, and kind of way he puts things across to the people at every level. Like as Bijoy was saying, he could interact with anybody and anybody. He could at their own personal languages. The language would change according to the person that he was interacting with. So that was the kind of person that he was. And so I was so lucky to be a part of his life. It made a complete difference. And the last thing that he told when we met was, take risk. Taking risk is something which is a part of your day-to-day life. He risked while he was doing his house. He risked while he was doing sept. He risked himself while he did sangat. So he was just giving examples of taking risks without knowing the outcome. And so taking risk is something should be a part and parcel of being an architect. So that's how I would like to end it. So to the students I would say, and as Premjit rightly said, you should aim for big dreams and to go to good practices to help yourself grow and be prepared to dream big. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your memories with B.V Doshi. We realize how much a notepad and a pen is significant to be carried as students of architecture and further way ahead. Thank you for reminding us through B.V Doshi's experiences. We could imagine how exciting it would have been to have a thesis project designed in the premises of such an eminent architect, and more importantly, to have an opportunity to be in frequent conversation with him. Earlier, we learned about the necessity of starting afresh from architect Praveen Rao, and now we also learn that satisfaction through happiness is where we could stop. Thank you for sharing your cherishable memories with us, sir. Architect Ar.Bijoy, Principal Architect and Urban Spatial Analyst of R&D and Architecture firm, co-founder in Kerala with Sādhanā. In order to improve the quality and effectiveness of the lives of the organization and people it designs for, the profession aims to take advantage of the opportunities that planned spaces offer. He has collaborated with well-known firms, both domestically and internationally, including B.V Doshi, Sādhanā, Maestro, and Space Lab in London. He holds graduate degrees from SCMS College of Architecture, Kerala, and the Bartlett at University College, London. He also has a great interest in education and served as the first head of the faculty at Army Institute of Design when it first opened in Kerala. He writes blogs, publishes research papers, and exhibits his work on national and international stages. His published research focuses on applying the space syntax framework to comprehend spatial cultures at the building and urban scales. Additionally, he is the founding trustee of Co-Earth, an NGO dedicated to environmentally and socially responsible building. Multiple national and regional awards, including the IIA and the IIIT Awards for Excellence, the Young Designer of the Year Award by the Indian Architect and Builder magazine, and inclusion on the merit list have been given to R&D for their work in architecture, interior design, product design, and writing. I kindly welcome you onto the stage, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks to SCMS, Gauri, Roy, everybody, principal, who has invited me here. Also to Bijoy and Premjit for doing that video, the 2 documentaries. It was beautiful to listen to Praveen and Jose as well. Yeah, I could relate to a lot of things that you said. I did my internship in 2006 at Sangat. Incidentally, I wanted to join Korea's office, and that was my first preference. But fortunately, I didn't get through. And I applied to Doshi's office as well. When I applied, my HOD said, when I talked to him about applying to both of these places, he said, I studied at MES Kuttipuram, and our college was just 3 or 4 years old. We didn't even have a batch that had graduated. It was a place that nobody could say, nobody knew. So he was like, people apply to these offices much earlier, it's difficult to get through. But fortunately, I didn't get through at Korea's office, and then I applied at Doshi's office, and fortunately went there for the interview, came back, and this is, I think, before emails probably, before emails were popular. I had to take photographs of my sheets, put it on a CD and courier the CD. And then they called from there. And then fortunately managed to get hold of them because we didn't have mobiles. Got the call, went there, did the interview. Finally, fortunately, I got there February, I think 2006. So I was quite fascinated by Korea's work, how it looked as a young third year, fourth year student. Doshi's grey buildings looked very dull to me at that point. So I did my internship there, and but I think I should go back a little bit. So in the first year, I had the good fortune that I was assigned to study and present on Corbusier. So each of us in the class were asked to present about another architect, and I fortunately got Corbusier. So for me, it was I realized much later that I was able to value Doshi much better because I had some understanding of who Corbusier was. Recently when he passed away, just incidentally 10 days before that, we were on the way back from a photo shoot of one of our projects, and two of the architects in my office were with me, and we were talking about the project. Like, after having visited Spen, we actually slept in that house, and the next day we took photographs and came back, and we were talking about the house. And for a good part of that drive from Wayanad to Calicut, we were talking about Doshi. We were talking about how much he's influenced our work and the way we think and the way we design. And it was very disturbing when he passed away. And I find that very strange. Like, somebody who I knew for a short while, and it's been years since that happened, since we've interacted properly. But still, he has such an impact. To disturb so many people across the country when you pass away, and to affect, Praveen was talking about his stories, Joseph was talking about his stories, he's affected so many people's lives. It's just amazing that something like that can happen, that one person can have such an impact. As a Muslim, we believe that there are angels on our shoulders recording the good and the bad. For me, when I practice, there are some Doshi is like this angel that you sense that he's watching. And then there's some justice that has to be done. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to interview him at the Biennale and show him some of my work at that time. And he had shared some comments on seeing the work. So those comments are always there in the back of my head, like, what will he say if he sees my work? So it's like an angel sitting on your shoulder, and kind of you're conscious that he's watching. So working in Sangeet, I think Jose would completely agree, is just using that space, being that every day walking into the office was like a new day, because the way the path is organized, its sequence, there's a statue there, there's a sculpture here, there's a green there, and then there's a tree there, and you don't just walk into the building straight. And I used to, like, months into my internship, I realized, like, I don't remember seeing that. I've been there every day, but still suddenly you realize that, was that there earlier? It's like every day there's something more to experience. And it's just one single entry. And so his buildings were, for me, the time spent in Sangat, till date, there are times when I go back in the office, I kind of Google and say, look at this window. look at this detail. Similarly, towards the end of my internship, I was selected to help Doshi on his book, Paths Uncharted. So what that involved, as Josh was saying, I had to work with him on editing the book. So he would write, he would edit, he would cut and put together things from different parts, and I was supposed to type it down and kind of finish the sentences and things like that. The book took years, and there was a lot of people who worked on it. I was not the only person. Mine was just 1 month actually. But during that 1 month, because he spends the mornings at home, and that's something that he got from Kobasir. Kobasir sits in his studio and paints and reads in the mornings. So similarly, Doshi used to be at home in the mornings. So I used to go to his house and sit in his studio, his small workspace at home in the morning. I had the good fortune of having lunch with his family for that period of time. At first I thought they would eat and then they would ask me to eat later, because I felt he was like a demigod and I'm like a servant, so I'll probably come late. I would have been happy with that, but fortunately he was kind to let me sit next to him and his wife and have lunch for that 1 month. Unfortunately, I was too young. I was just an intern, so I was quiet most of the time. There was one instance where I think I practiced the question in my head for many days, and then finally had the guts to ask him. We would have conversations on the work. He would come and go. He wasn't sitting there the whole time. But one time when I got sent, I asked him this naughty question about Gehri, because I saw Gehri as an opposite to Doshi. And so I asked him, what does he think about Gehri and Zahadir? And I thought he would be criticizing their work and saying what's wrong with it or something like that. But he was like, oh, they do great work. I don't know if I understand their work fully. I'd like to understand it more. I don't know if I can do that kind of work. And for me, it confounded me. It was not the kind of answer that I expected. But it shows his humility, primarily I guess his humility and lack of any arrogance. I didn't come across any of it throughout the time I spent with him. That 1 month of working on the book and seeing Kamala House, as Praveen said, was a lot of learning. So even that drive back from Wayanad, I was telling the staff, there's a window in his bedroom, this thin, long window. There are the windows near the living room. There's a staircase that is not just a staircase, that's a place where they play music also. There's the sitar and the piano and all that. There are so many things about the house, the section, the way how light comes in, the way how he sits on a platform to have lunch, the storage underneath. There's so many things. So actually the first time I went to the house, in Kerala, somebody who is rich and prominent has a big house, maybe 5,000 square feet, 3,000 square feet, 7,000 square feet. It's a large compound. The first time I went to the house, I passed the house and there was another bigger house next to it. I thought this must be the house, this is big, this is bigger. But I knew it, I've seen pictures of the house and it didn't look like Doshi's work, so I was confused. And finally I kind of walked around for a while, and then, because this house is only ground floor, from the outside, because of the trees, you don't see much. But it's a very simple, small house. So for us from Kerala, I think, for me that was a big eye-opener, that you can have, a great person can have a small house. At Sangat, working in the office, as Bijoy said, having a sketchbook was important. Doshi didn't work on a lot of projects. He would work on very few projects. He would come in the afternoon. He would spend time primarily with the person who's working on that project. And he spent a lot of time with the model maker. He would sometimes be designing with the model maker, and you'd see models of sections. In colleges, you don't have drawings of sections, but in Sangat, they have models of sections. It's not only drawings, but sometimes he's designing in section. And you have options of sections, models of the sections hanging in the carpenter's room. So he spent a lot of time in the carpenter, with the carpenter, in the model making room. And so I would often, tea time, break times, always go to the carpenter, because to see what what was the conversation, what did he say, what is he thinking, what does he do. And the carpenter was a very nice person, Purushottam Bhai. I don't know if he was there. He actually taught me Lee modular, how do you derive Lee modular, how these dimensions work, where all does Doshi apply it. So in office, there was only little time that we got with him as interns, but at every time at the end of him talking, he would ask us for questions. And at that point, I used to wonder, like, why is he asking us for questions? Like, we're interns, we're people who don't know anything, and he just said 3 or 4 sentences, so he just spoke for a while. What is there to question about? But he used to get agitated that we didn't have questions. So at that point, then we started forcing ourselves to think of questions and asking questions. Though initially it was forced, over time I realized that it's not the questions that he was asking for us. He was asking us to think. It's not just to listen, but to question what we're listening to and to think about it also. And typically as students, as people, what we do is when we watch a movie or we listen to a lecture, we're only on listening mode. We're not critiquing what the person is saying. We're not questioning what the person is saying. Whereas in asking us to question, what I realized later was that he was asking us to question what he was saying also. And to challenge him, or to challenge what was being said, reflect about what was being said, and have opinions and have questions. And that to me has impacted me a lot, to the point where I think friends in Calicut would make fun of me that I always ask questions after lectures. But to me that's helped a lot, and in practice also, often, even when I was preparing this talk, I started off with questions. There was a set of questions that I asked first, and then I was kind of formulating answers to those questions. So it becomes a way of thinking for me. So both the time in the office and at home was a lot of learnings in terms of understanding the simplicity of a person, his lifestyle, his architecture as well. But that simplicity of the person was amazing. And I think has come across in what other people have said also. Once when I was there, it was after the riots. So one day there was some riots had started somewhere in Gujarat, and I got called to his office, and him and his granddaughter Kushnu, they both called me and said, "There's news that there's riots starting in some place. It may not be safe for you to stay in the hostel. If you need anything, don't feel bad to ask. You can come and stay in the office upstairs." So the office was a guest house where big visitors used to stay. But they offered that, and it was not because of my greatness, it's because of his greatness. I mean, his kindness, his concern, however well established and great he was, there was a great deal of humility and kindness that they had. He as a person, and then that nurtured in the whole family. I got caught, in my life I've got caught by the police thrice because of my identity. Being a minority in Kerala is easy, but when you step aside, it's often challenged. Once I've been to a jail also, simply because of how I looked and because of my identity. So, I mean, the reason I'm saying this is significant. When you go to a place like, and people show this concern, it's very touching. So I was staying in the Sept hostel, and I would go to the campus often. And there was one occasion when, so you've probably heard of the Kurla Varki Forum. It's an annual forum where they invite thesis students, the best of thesis students, to present their work. And there's like a panel of pundits, including Doshi and the stalwarts in practice in education, reviewing the work. And so for one particular session, the people on the panel were strongly criticizing this student's work. This person had all sorts of angles on the facade, or on the exterior of the building. And one after the other, people were asking these very tough questions, and it became very embarrassing. This person was getting completely ripped apart. After a couple of them, Doshi spoke, and then Doshi asked, everybody was critiquing these angles. And Doshi asked, so you talk about the angles, but why is it only in the elevation? Why didn't you push it further and see how else it could have been applied, both in the section and in the plan and the experience? So he completely flipped the whole thing. Till then, everybody was criticizing picking on one thing and criticizing it. Whereas he was seeing that, he was being able to see what the student was trying to do, and he was saying, let's talk about possibilities. Let's talk about what more you could do. Rather than sitting and criticizing him in front of a hall full of experts. And I think for the teachers here and for students who also, that it's easy to criticize, but I think as a teacher, I think he was greatly influential to many people, because when he talks, you always end up imagining and dreaming and thinking of new possibilities. There's always a question that he leaves you with, like, what if the hand is not yours? Is that he just throws that in and suddenly you're like wondering. So I think that's something as a teacher that's important. I think in the context of him as an institution builder, what I appreciated, this is something I came to realize much later when I was part of a school, is something that managements in colleges struggle with across the country is to hold people. Faculty are constantly coming and going. Whereas Doshi had people like Chaya, Varki, Beninger, Anandraje. There's so many people who are experts in their domain, whether it's urban design, landscape, Prabhakar Bhagat, Anamir Bhagavat, in planning, Utpal Sharma, Rameshwar and UD. He had the best of academicians in various domains, whether it's teaching structure, basic design, the best of faculty. And people who, very strong personalities, people who is known that in faculty meetings they would be fighting with each other. They would be almost like at arms with each other. He was able to hold all of them together. He's able to accommodate and give everybody a space. And there was a culture that existed in CEPT which allowed everybody a space, which is something which colleges struggle to across the country, is to hold on to people who have strong opinions, hold on to people who are good, hold on to people who are different, who are willing to accept you and what you believe in. And that is something that is very rare. And I think that's something that made CEPT what it is. There's so many things that is in CEPT culture that I'm not surprised about, considering he was involved and he started it. I'm not saying Doshi was the only person. There was obviously a lot of faculty there, Varki, and a lot of Chaya, and a lot of professors who were instrumental in shaping it. But there are certain values that CEPT had long back that I would say often would lead to him. The fact that he started the school, I think, is a lesson for all of us. Is often we don't care. We see things on the floor, nobody picks it up. We see problems in society, we see problems in our class, we see problems in our institute, nobody does anything about it. I don't think Doshi was like that. Doshi was a person who would see a problem and want to help and want to do something about it. And him starting CEPT after having coming back from Paris was a big leap. Why would he do that? Why would somebody, he didn't have the money, he got Ahmedabad Education Society, I think the founder of it, to invest, and they started in a badminton court. And now CEPT is a university. So this attitude of a person to want to solve problems, to want to get involved, to engage, to be of help. Even, I think 5-6 years back, I had heard somebody say that Doshi is frustrated about the quality of education and he wants to help other schools. He doesn't need to do this. At that age of his, there was no need for him to do it. But for him, he's concerned, he cares, and he's interested and wants to help and make a difference and contribute and do what he can. There was, Bijoy mentions about this also, he was talking about his openness. In his life, there is something about Doshi that amazes me. When he was, so I think somebody had advised him to go to JJ. He was studying there, and then, so for going to JJ itself was a big deal for him and his family, like somebody to go to college that far away. In between, while he was there, he heard about people going and writing the R.I.B.A. exam in London, and that you could write an R.I.B.A. exam and become an architect in London. And so finally, so he left before he graduated. He went on a ship to London. So obviously it takes ages. He doesn't have money. His brother was willing to sponsor. His family wasn't keen, but his brother said, "Okay, I'll help you." And he went by ship. So imagine there's no Google, there's no WhatsApp, there's no mobile, there's no internet. And this person is saying, okay, let me go see. I hear this is something good, let me go see, let me go try it out. And he goes all the way by ship to England. There he starts learning for his R.I.B. exams, and he comes across a SIAM conference, he comes across Corbusier. And then again he hears about Corbusier and how he's doing great work. And so he applies to Corbusier's office, and then another leap to go and work in Paris. So he doesn't have a degree, he didn't finish the R.I.B. exams, and again he jumps. And for me these are leaps, and Bijoy was talking about, I think we are all much more conservative. Even with all the information that we have, we wouldn't be that daring. But I think it goes back to what Jose was talking about, is this question, are you happy? Can I be happier? Is there something better? Can I do better? That's probably where it comes from. Is this, I don't know what confidence you would have to just take a leap like that. Even with all this information, I think we would think 100 times before we take these leaps. So without a degree, without his R.I.B., he goes to Paris and works there for 4 years, and then comes back, and then again starting this college. So I think that's something that we could all learn a bit from. And somewhere I think it's also this keenness to learn that I think many people mentioned about. Even when he came for the Bangalore workshop, I was there to meet him. I'd gone to meet him, and he's saying that I've come to the Bangalore workshop to see how these people teach. I've heard how Richard and Peter organize these workshops in Australia, these master classes. I want to know how they teach, how do they organize these workshops. And this again, he's past 80, he's run an institution for 50 years, and he's still traveling from Ahmedabad to Bangalore with the energy and enthusiasm to learn how to teach. So that keenness to learn, I think, is one thing that drove him all his life. He's just full of energy. As I mentioned, when we did the interview at the Biennale, he spent, the interview was in the evening, I went to meet him in the afternoon, and at, again, 80 plus, he had visited a lot of the Biennale, and he was full of energy. And Tony was saying that I walked with him and I was tired. Doshi was not tired after all, and he has an interview in the evening also. So that keenness to learn, to explore, to see new things, and to try to get better, I think these are things that all of us could learn so much from. So I guess I'm really glad that I didn't get through at Korea's office. Recently I realized is that Korea's work is amazing. I'm still a fan of Korea's work. But Korea is like the foreground architect. He's the performer. He has the great ideas, probably some of the greatest of ideas for a particular typology. Like you think of apartments, you think of Kanchenjunga as like an exception. You think of housing, you think of his housing projects. Whereas Doshi was the background architect. He was the stage. His buildings, the reason I realized later that I didn't like his buildings initially is that they were not the performers. The building was the stage for everybody else to perform, for life to happen. And so the building was only an enabler. And I guess, Jose, it's beautiful the way he said, it's like a door. That so many people pass through him. And he's so right, there are so many people who are like Doshi. There are so many people who think like Doshi because he was an enabler. He was a platform that allowed everybody else to perform. And they became through him. And that I think is amazing. It's part of the humility. It's part of what I think Bijoy was also saying of not being existent and not seeing yourself as being what's important. I think Sept is about like you go there and there's so much happening, and then the building becomes like this background for all this to happen, and the center stage is all the people sitting and watching movies and playing cricket and having conversations. And that is what he was talking about when he talks about celebrating life. I don't know as students if you really get it, but essentially he was interested in all these small things, the bird and the trees and the water flowing and the pause and how you sit cross-legged and how you lean on something and how a platform becomes a step, how a platform becomes a place for conversation. All these small things in life were important, and we should design for those small things that shape our lives. Whether it's walking to office, the experience of walking to office. There's this paint can which is put upside down and hung Was it there when you were also there? On the way to Sangat, there's a tin can that's hung on from a tree. And it's like when you walk there, you walk right underneath it. Just naturally, instinctively, you go and touch and you ring the bell. It's a stone inside a can. So the idea was that it's like your temple, that you're going to office, this is your place of worship. And so it's symbolic as being in a temple. So the small thing of walking to the office is so rich of experiences. Just walking inside 2 steps, you go straight, take a turn, and then go inside, and you're under this building and over a building and another. So this celebration of these small things in life was such a thing, and it's possible because of how observant he was of life, how observant he was of people and how we behave, which you can see in the movie also, is how he's looking at things. But also, and he talks about this in a recent interview, of him spending time with his wife's uncle and learning mythology and the Vedas and Ramayana and Mahabharata, and the importance of understanding philosophy and these larger ideas of life. I think that was probably one of the big differences that made him what he was. Is he wasn't seeing what we see as objects. He could see the metaphysical, the spiritual, and he could see the beyond because he was interested and he spent time learning about it also. And that's something that I would also advise. Like, I think we're very superficial. I think practice nowadays is very superficial. There's a lot of award-winning projects. It's very superficial. We're playing with form. We're playing with how things appear. There is very little depth in what we're doing. And I think this deeper understanding of the meaning of life that he had is something that enabled the depth in his work and whenever he speaks also. So I think more than the architecture, though there is so much about the architecture, I think it is him as a person that a lot of us have been talking about today. His humility, his patience, his simplicity, being open, willing to take these leaps, being an extremely genuine person, his kindness, the curiosity of a young person, the eagerness to learn, willingness to take risks, this constant desire to be better, and to, as Joseph was saying, is always trying to do better upon what you've done. Is to constantly look critically at what you've done, not have this attachment. And in colleges, this is what typically happens. You draw one option, and faculty ask you to make any changes, and you don't want to change it. There's so much attachment to what you've done. Whereas he's detached. He can work on it for so many days, and then the night before or after it gets constructed, say, let's make it better. So also this, I think all of us, we live in an Instagram time where we don't have patience. Our attention spans are very short. Everything has to be achieved in this swipe. It can't be, even if you have to read, you have to know whether it's a 2-minute read or a 3-minute read or a 5-minute read. Only then will you read. So I think there's a need for us to slow down a lot more, to have patience, to invest time in our careers, to be conscious of these decisions that we're making and how our career is being shaped. Reflect about what we're doing. There is so much to learn. Like at 95, he was learning. Where are we? All of us are not going to become Doshis, but there are so many things that we can do that are Doshi-like. I think definitely Doshis taught us to live a full life, and when you leave, you can leave such a large impact. You can leave so many traces, you can leave so many beautiful memories, and you can touch so many lives. We may not be as great as he is, but I think we could learn how to live more meaningful lives as better people, humane people. I'll stop with that. Thanks once again for inviting me.
Thank you, Architect Abhi, for sharing your experiences. You could realize how much your internship days would have helped in your journey. The importance of how much models play a pivotal role in the process of designing buildings is thankfully inferred. Thank you for your presence with us and exchanging memories with B.V Doshi. With many layers of discussions having taken place in the past few moments, I would like to open up the venue for the question and answer session.
given his brilliant time. So we wish you and they try to answer. And if you have any more questions, we can still have B.V Doshi. Okay, so without wasting time, please respond to what you saw, what you heard from him, and let's make this useful.
Who has a question?
Maybe you can come forward.
Hello, sir. We've watched the movie, we've heard it talk. Now my question is that many instances in the movie, as well as in one of his letters to his daughters, he talks about going back to our own inner perceptions and forgetting what we have learned from history books and our experiences so far. And he encourages us to do something on our own and how important it is. So my question is that why do you think it is important to keep reinventing architecture continuously again and again? My question is to Ar.Bijoy, sir.
Sometimes I think he was very intuitive. Like he would just take these leaps, take quick decisions, very spontaneous. But sometimes I think his work wasn't instantaneous. It was highly reflective. He was very conscious of what he was doing, and he was constantly questioning what he was doing. And I think Joseph's example is probably the best answer to your question. Is that you don't know what your best work is going to be. You can only keep striving towards it. It's not an end state. It's a constant effort to do. So I think somewhere we get this perception that it's a linear process. Design is like you do one thing, the next thing, the next thing, and it's not like that. It's very haphazard, cyclical, iterative, you keep going back and forth. So you have to keep acting, reflecting on how it's turned out. And as I think Joseph was saying, put it aside. One day just keep it there because today it looks nice. But tomorrow when you come and look at it, you realize it could be better. So there is this, and this is not something that we are trained to do in school or in college. It's to reflect about what we do. There is a guy called John Dewey, an educationist. What he says is that you don't learn through experience. You learn through your reflection about your experience. You can all sit in the same class, go for the same course, see the same movie, but you don't learn from it simply because you've experienced it. You learn when you've reflected about your experience. So, coming back to your question, this thing about reinventing architecture or reinventing whatever, I mean, you should be constantly looking to reinvent. Question, what is the status quo, what is the norm, what is the usual, what have I done? And ask yourself, is there a better way of doing it? Is there another way of doing it? And sometimes it's the 11th iteration that makes you get there. Or maybe it's the 11th iteration that gets built and you realize on site, as Joseph was saying. But the point is not, I mean, I'm not advocating you should break down buildings, or that's not a good thing to do. But to be constantly questioning what you do and not be happy and satisfied with whatever is done. That yearning to do better, to reinvent, to try again, to question, I think is important. I don't know if you guys want to add. Did I answer the question? Is that what you were asking? You guys want to add anything?
Did you ask the question like as if forgetting the past? Is that the question?
No, like we have learned few things in the history, like this is how it's supposed to be, or this is how we should follow things. And there are things we have learned, like as a student, every year we learn each processes. So when we come into inventing something or creating something on our own, he encourages us to not completely forget, but at least look at it with a different perception. So I was asking if it was really important for each one of us to look at it in a different perception each time we look at something.
There are two things to this. Like at the age when Doshi is writing this book, he would have a different perception about what he might be saying about, like to completely forget what you have done till yesterday, or the process that you have already made or somebody had taught you. So he will be in a different state of mindset with which he is already telling that, because he could transcend all of those years and then he's able to do that. So, but as a student, when you do, the second stage would be, as a student you would do is like, you have to go through all these processes initially. It's like repeat yourself. Like Bruce Mao has a 41-point incomplete manifesto for growth. If you, there's a guy called Bruce Mao. He's a designer. He has written an incomplete manifesto for growth. He has written 41 points, out of which one of this is repeat yourself. And he says, repeat yourself if you like it, repeat yourself if you don't like it. So the first thing is liking it. Repeating yourself is like, okay, you know this is good, so then you repeat it. But then when you don't like it, he means to say that you have to repeat it to correct it or upgrade it. So similarly, you have to go through an entire process to reach to the stage where Doshi is saying forget everything. Yeah. So, and the meaning, I would say, I am not Doshi to say that, but still, my reading, like when he says to forget it, it's like just let it flow through you. You know, so when you are letting yourself to flow through your that kind of divinity with which you are able to draw, then you are obviously in a state of trance, then you are already forgetting everything. So to experience that, you have to be just a, what do you say, observer, or kind of a, you are not there actually. So that is the kind of mind state that you have to have when you design. So to reach there, I think it's a tough thing to reach there. So, but once you start practicing, maybe it's like meditation, yoga, or right?
I just have something, just one line to say. If he's asked me to reinvent myself, then what is design? It's nothing. Right? Did you get what I'm saying?
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to add that something I wanted to mention during the talk is something that's very special about Doshi. So we hear of Doshi and maybe Raj Raval and Korea, but there were many others who worked within the modernist paradigm and who were contemporaries to them. One thing that's special with Doshi and also with Korea is that Doshi had extremely strong influences, whether it's Kahn or Corbusier. Yet after one point in his work, you can see Kahn, you can see Korea, but it's both. It's also neither. It's Doshi. He was able to reinvent everything that he had learned from both of them and make it his own. So that's on one side. The other side, and that's important, that sometimes we all struggle with that. We are influenced strongly, and we can't let go of it, and it becomes us. Whereas I think what's important is, and sometimes it takes time, but to make it your own, which he was capable of doing. And he was able to contextualize it. His work was in many sense, very Indian, but it was also, you could see Kahn and Corbusier and modernism and all that in it. The other thing I wanted to say is that when we design, what we are doing, there's a lot of subconscious copying and lifting things that we've seen before. We've seen projects, we've seen drawings, we've seen so many things that other people have done. It comes back to us when we draw. it's a very subconscious thing. You probably are not aware that you're drawing this because you've seen it 3 days back. If you read, there's this nice book by Daniel Kahneman. He talks about these biases that we have that are subconscious. We're not aware of them. Advertising works like that. They say the same name so many times that after some time you think it's good, though you've not tasted it, you've not tried it, but you assume that it's good just because it's familiar. So there are various biases that work on us that we are affected by. So things a lot what we do is very subconscious. So in that context, I think it's important to do things spontaneously, intuitively, and then look at it and question it, and ask ourselves, well, is this what I want to do? Is this right? Is this appropriate? Because sometimes you're just copying, you're just lifting things from other places. So I think it's important to always look critically at what you're doing and at everything. I wonder if B.Joy wants to add anything. Or would be the right person to answer that.
So next question, yeah, could I ask a question? First of all, I'd like to thank the 5 of you for sharing a wonderful experience, and from what Praveen told me, and coincidentally what I've been telling my wife for the past 1.5 months, I think I should take a backpack and go to Ahmedabad, rediscover love for architecture. Okay, I've been telling her this for some time now. I don't know if I can do it, but thank you so much first of all. And a couple of questions, but I think predominantly Doshi's influence on the pedagogy and teaching of architecture. Of course, I know you've not been very involved in that aspect of Doshi, but what are your views on that? Because I think I remember reading somewhere that Doshi, whenever he enters a site, every day he enters a site from a different direction, different point of view, and he evaluates, and there was a situation wherein he ended up demolishing the gate and relocating the gate because he felt that the view, the approach to the site was much better. So in that respect, how do you think his attitude, or rather his approach towards teaching, pedagogy, that actually influenced SEPT? Your views on that, if you could share? And that's open to all.
So I'll start off with the design of SEPT. So if you notice, there's no corridors. So what he was saying, that education is to open doors. So how it works there is this: you walk from one studio to the other, you have to go through the other studio. So in the old building, in the old SA building, you're standing in one studio, but you look down, you're seeing into the other studio. Just as a philosophy of this idea that education is to open doors. As you said, I've not looked at, it's hard to say to pinpoint specifically what Doshi did at SEPT, because you're not closely involved, and because there are so many people who were involved. So there was, Kurla Varki was another person who was highly influential in a lot of what's happening there, and then after that Chayo took over and he did 20 years or so. And then after that the present management as well. So it's one side is hard to pinpoint specifically, but as I was saying earlier, there is a humaneness that he had, and a lot of the faculty that you see at that point of time had, and if you interact with them you realize that. Very kind, considerate, very grounded, very genuine. It was not about fancy kind of outlandish statements. That humaneness as a faculty, as a teacher, as a person is there in a lot of what they teach. A lot of this idea of designing for life, celebrating life, you can see that in SEPT campus, and you can see that in the drawings. If you look at old drawings, you can see cats and people sitting and lying down and on platforms, and monkeys and plates and pots in their plans. It's full of life. So they're visualizing how life would have happened in those spaces, and it's there in those drawings. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that question. But this idea that, going at the larger meta question, that is, is not confining architecture to syllabus and courses and subjects, but kind of going much beyond that. And you realize that when you start dealing with much beyond and kind of passionately getting involved, so teachers are walking in and walking out at different times of the day, students are passionately involved, there's genuine conversation, there's genuine interaction happening. It's a very genuine, passionate endeavor, this whole learning of architecture and teaching of architecture. That's what passes on. That passion is what passes on. And that leads to many things. I think that's where many schools falter.
Teaching is all about inspiring. It's not about giving information that anybody, even Google can do that. What Doshi did was inspire first. Inspire not just by talk, but by example. Not by looking at his projects, by looking at the way he lived. For example, when I was at the Bangalore workshop, we had a seminar by a younger architect, and Doshi was sitting with us in the audience. And I was not looking at the person talking, I was looking at him. And he has this small little notebook in his pocket all the time, and he has many of them from many years. He was actually sitting and writing down notes. This 86-year-old man was sitting and writing down notes from the seminar, or even sketching something which he liked. And that is what I think inspires his students. A teacher who is also a student for life. And we miss the point that you're not on your way. You should not be striving to become a master. You should be striving to be a student for life, and you might end up as a master. And that's what happened to Doshi. Because he was a student of life and a student of architecture, he became a master. And he did not let it go there to his head. So every teacher should realize that we are here to impart knowledge and also to gain. It is a two-way process. It's never a one-way process. And even the students need to realize that. But for that, the teacher will have to set an example. I was just talking to Abid in the morning. I was telling, parenting. A child does not listen to you and learn. He observes you and learns. You say, don't tell a lie, but you are lying. The child won't learn that. Child will learn how to lie. Same way, for a teacher, you need to inspire, you need to set an example, and they will follow. And that's what Doshi did.
Another question?
Hello. My question is to architect Praveen Ram, sir. Actually, I'm curious to know that how these 12 years and after you met B.V Doshi, sir, how did your design actually change? If you compare your past works and the works now, and also, are you happy as an architect now that you've changed your style?
Now, as an architect, definitely. 10 years before meeting Doshi, I was an architect only because I spent 5 years in college doing architecture. But I should say, I was working with Sthapati, Tony, just before I met Doshi. And I should say the library which Tony has in his office is amazing. So I was maybe that triggered. The movie did it finally, but before the movie, the library in Tony's office and also some parts where Tony, the way he practiced, really triggered that interest in architecture. I was, I think, the only person in Tony's office who would go to the library and spend a lot of time in the library, because suddenly there was Bava and there was Charles Correa and everybody there. And I would spend a lot of time in the library. But in college, we normally don't have time to go and read so many submissions and all that. And nobody really talks about, they just mention the masters, but they don't, like how we are talking right now about a master. You never talk in college, you know, and there were so many masters around me at that time. So I feel after meeting Doshi, like you asked about my projects, before meeting Doshi, well, I did some really meager projects. Right now, the way I practice is, I'm a one-man practice. I don't have an office. I take only 2 or 3 projects a year, but I really have fun doing it. I don't do it to get an award, to get acknowledgement, nothing. I do it because I am happy doing it, that's all. And I don't compare myself to anybody. I don't criticize anybody. I simply put my head down and work, travel, study, sketch, design, and do what I have to do. I do not publish my works in magazines because I still feel I'm not good. The day I start feeling I like my buildings, maybe you will start seeing it. The only place you will see it in is in a few pictures in my Instagram handle, but I'm really having a great time practicing architecture right now because I'm doing it at my own pace, really having fun at what I'm doing. And I have promised him that I would not dirty myself again. So that promise is on. And he always says, in his movie, he says that always remember there is someone better than you standing at the back and looking at you and watching you. He was talking about his master, Corbusier. So I feel somebody like him is standing behind me and checking on me all the time. So I cannot disappoint him now, since he's given me that. So whether people like my building or not, I'm not bothered. I am going to have fun doing architecture, and I'm going to really involve myself in it. That's all. Thank you.
I think we'll take one more question. They'll be here. If anyone is really interested, they'll be here for a few more minutes and you can directly talk to them. But we'll take one.
What in Doshi sir's perspective was a masterpiece? Like, when did he seem to be satisfied with his own work, or when did he seem to be like, when did he feel that he has reached that perfection? So then, what was his definition of a masterpiece would be?
I don't know.
See, nobody knows what a masterpiece is. Do you know what a masterpiece is? You go into a building, like Bijoy mentioned, no? A timeless building where you would even prefer being late for a meeting and spending more time here, right? Now that's a masterpiece. But that depends on you. It does not depend on someone saying it is a masterpiece. Whether you like that building or not is your experience of that space. It is not somebody else's experience of that space. So do not get dragged into that. Doshi he loved certain buildings, he got inspired by certain buildings, and that's his take. But a Frank Gehry or a Zaha Hadid would have seen somebody else. and not consider these architects as masters, right? So masterpiece is a very, very relative term. And you can, and why do you want to focus on masterpieces? Why do you want to focus on masterpieces? No, the temples that have been done thousands of years back, are they masterpieces? Only if you feel something within yourself which is not physical, then you feel it's a, see that's what Khan and Doshi all are after. They were behind the non-physical, not the physical. Architecture is not physical. But you will not understand that now. You will understand that later when you go deeper and deeper into architecture. I never understood it. But right now I have started realizing it. And that is what I am constantly looking for. I am never looking at, I don't think a building is material and all these mud crusaders and all that. I think it's all rubbish. I feel architecture is space. You don't run after material. Material is just another thing, just an element to put into a building to make that space. But ultimately it is that non-physical that is most important. That's my take. That's my definition of a masterpiece, not yours. You may have another one.
I think in one sense that question is important, like to understand what is good architecture, what is a, but there's also this danger of seeking, so I think we should all seek excellence, but to make things as good as they can be. But perfection is not something that's practically possible. I think this, especially like in this present times where you get, when you see projects on ArcDaily or Instagram, everything looks picture perfect. And it creates this impression and desire for everybody to produce that kind of picture perfect projects. But this perfection is not something that you can just achieve easily, and it's not something that works in all contexts. So I think it's also a dangerous term. This seeking perfection is a problem, because you can't achieve it. You can seek the excellence, you can seek to be as good as possible. But another problem is that there are just so many dimensions to a building. There is very mundane things like costs, availability of materials, there's the context, there is a client, there is a user, there's the history of the client, his whole life. Like you're building a house for a person, you're building a space where his marriage is going to be built, their children's childhood is going to be affected there. Their grandparents' end of life is probably going to happen in that house. There is the finances that the guy has. This is his whole life history, his previous houses that he's lived in, his memories of places. There are just so many dimensions to a project. And again, as there's the performance of the house. How does the house enable the conversations between husband, wife, children and father, neighbor and neighbor, with birds and the residents, with the pets and the residents. There's just so many dimensions to a project. To get everything right, I don't think is possible. There is no one solution. That you can seek to address as many concerns as are possible. But what is appropriate for that particular client, context, situation, time, in history of life, may not be something that fits in a magazine. It may not, but it may be exactly what is appropriate there. So on one side, it's not about an ideal, a singular ideal. There's in some sense, it's more an appropriateness of a place, of a time. So there's a danger in us seeking this perfection because you will get frustrated. To achieve it is very hard. But you can constantly strive to get better, to improve, and to make it as good as possible. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So Ar.Bijoy also mentioned that to him it was to provide a platform or background, a stage for someone else to perform. So it's not so much of being iconic, but as a space which can be used. So thank you all so much. I think it was really worth the time spent for everyone to learn. So we need to, like if you look at Doshi's example, to learn, unlearn and relearn. and also have the patience, preparation, and the idea to take leaps based on those things, or probably on your intuition, whether you are at the crossroads or crossing a road, there's a timing to it. Like one of his interviews, he said, you can't just rush and cross a road, but probably wait. But you can't keep waiting also. You need to have a sense of timing. Also, like we heard, a sense of, like he says, giving back to the society, whether it is IIM, whether it is SEPT, whether it is some of the projects, that the collaboration here to bring in calm and also to step aside. He could have taken it and done it as his own project, but he stepped back for this collaboration to work. So to giving back to the society, even if you don't make much of a profit in that bargain. So thank you all for coming and spending this day with us. It was really informative. So thank you.
Moving on, now we will have the felicitation ceremony. I invite Dr. Meryl George to felicitate architect Jose Benoit. I invite architect Rashmi Das to felicitate architect Abid Rahim. I request architect Epan Matthew to felicitate architect Praveen Ram. We have our students prepare mementos by sketching few of the eminent works of architect B.V. Doshi. I invite Aravind Santosh to hand over the memento to architect Abid Rahim. I invite Georgie Vaidyan to hand over the memento to architect Jose Benoit. And finally, Ankita Lal to hand over the memento to architect Praveen Ram. Since we have two of our guests joining online, I request Archisha Joshi and Dixon Jason to virtually show the mementos by stepping onto the stage. Thank you all. I welcome architect Tara Pandala to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Honorable guests, Dignitaries, faculties and students. I am Architect Tara Pandala, Associate Professor, School of Architecture. I am greatly honored to have this opportunity to thank everyone present in this occasion to commemorate Professor Doshi. He is a very special mentor to me, and I had the great opportunity to listen to his wise words during my first internal review at CEPT University Master's Program. First and foremost, all glory to God for making this event a resounding success. On behalf of the entire team, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Architect B.V Ramachandran and Mr. Premraj Ramachandran for creating an insightful and informative documentary on the life and works of B.V Doshi. The documentary is a true masterpiece showcasing the exceptional talent and accomplishments of Doshi, which will inspire many aspiring architects and enthusiasts in the field. We would like to thank both of you for taking the time to share your valuable insights into the life and works of Doshi. Architect Praveen Ram, we are grateful for the knowledge and expertise you shared with us, which has been truly enlightening. Your contribution has enabled us to gain deeper understanding of the profession and the critical role played by Doshi in shaping the architecture industry. Thank you once again for cautioning us not to dirty our laundry. Architect Jose Binoy, we appreciate the time and effort you have taken to provide us with such an elaborate memoir of Doshi and the importance of learning and unlearning and, of course, dreaming. Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to express our gratitude to Architect Ar.Bijoy, not only for sharing his experience of working closely with Doshi, but also for being an excellent educator in the field of architecture. Thank you again for reminding us the importance of asking questions. Thanks again to all of you on the dais for sharing with us anecdotes of the master. I also thank SCMS SSA Management Professor Pramod B. Devanur, Vice Chairman, and Dr. Ar.Bijoy Radhakrishnan, Director, for organizing an event to remember the journey and triumphs of our Maestro, Architect B.V Doshi. I thank Professor Anil Ravindran, Principal SCMS SOA, for guiding us through, Dr. Merrill, Dean SSA, and also our senior faculty, Professor Roy Anthony, Professor John Kuruvilla, for the constant effort and support for making this momentous event, Sādhanā, a success. A wide round of applause and thanks to all the students of SSA who made an event a memorable one. The event was a true reflection of the creativity and passion of the student body and the faculty. Your commitment to excellence and your willingness to go the extra mile is what made the event such a success. I would like to thank the faculty for their guidance, support and dedication. Your unwavering commitment to excellence and your willingness to support the students is every way possible is truly appreciated. Finally, I would thank all of you present here to make the time to be with us today and helping us make this event a grand success. Thank you all, and Anand Raho.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I just wanted to add, it would have been nice to see more of you having sketchbooks in your hand, as both Praveen and Jose had mentioned. It's something that Doshi was always insistent on, that you had a sketchbook. Not just Doshi, but it's in CEPT. It's something that's integral, that you're always walking around with your sketchbook wherever you go. To sketch or to draw or to kind of jot down something that you thought of. So I just thought, if not now, if you don't have your sketchbook, at least go back today and write down what you take away from today's session. In the spirit of learning from Doshi, to reflect about what you've learned, what you've heard, and note it down. Not just listen and walk off. And if you don't have a sketchbook, get hold of one. As Jose said, you can make a sketchbook by stapling some paper together. Yeah, it would be nice if you could do that. I'd also be happy to hear what your takeaways are. You can probably approach either of us and come and share it off stage after the program. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
We thank our principal and faculty members for the opportunity given to present ourselves before you as the host for the day. Signing off for Anika and Christina. Now we request all to rise for National Anthem.
जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलति तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय